Hello, world. I'm Jack, and welcome to English Speaking Studio.
I'm Lucy. So what are you waiting for? Let's dive in and make learning English an unforgettable journey.
Ever get that, nagging feeling when you're trying to, set some boundaries?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, just saying no makes you feel like the worst person on the planet?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna, really dig into that today.
Okay.
So it turns out there's all this, psychology behind why it feels so bad to set limits.
Yeah, there really is.
So, today we're diving into, I think it's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab.
Oh, yeah, great book. Lots of insights in there.
And what we're really trying to do today is, I think everybody struggles with this, guilt around boundaries.
I think
So we're going to, try to unpack that.
Yeah.
Why do we feel so guilty?
It's true. And the book, it points out that a lot of this guilt, it really all goes back to how we were raised.
Oh, interesting.
As kids, we're often taught to put everyone else's needs first.
Yeah.
Which, ingrains this habit of people-pleasing. And that's tough to break.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. And it's not just, about feeling bad either. If we're always, running around for everyone else, we end up completely burnt out.
Exactly, yeah.
The book, it uses this analogy of, our time and energy being a battery,
I like that.
So if we're not recharging that battery, eventually we've got nothing left.
Yeah, it's like we're running on fumes.
Exactly.
And nobody wins in that situation.
Okay, so while boundaries might feel like you're, pushing people away, at first the book, it argues that they actually help us build, stronger relationships.
Oh, for sure. More authentic relationships.
Okay, interesting.
Because when everyone knows what they can and cannot offer, there's way more respect, less resentment.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, you're not building up all that unspoken stuff under the surface.
Right. Like where you stand with each other.
Exactly.
So the book argues that setting boundaries, it's not, selfish.
No.
It's actually a path to, a more genuine way of, connecting with the people in your life.
Okay.
But I think, before we get all excited about how great boundaries are, we got to unpack this guilt.
Right. Why is it so hard to shake?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
So, in the book, what are some of the reasons that it's so tough to overcome this guilt?
Well, the book digs into a bunch of factors.
Okay.
But one that really stood out to me is, it's the fear.
Oh, okay.
Straight up, we're scared of disappointing people.
Yeah.
Or getting into conflicts or maybe even damaging relationships just by saying, what we need.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
But the book pushes back on this a little. It suggests that if someone really cares about you, they'll respect your boundaries.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Thinking about it from the other side, if someone, throws a fit every time you try to set a limit, that's maybe a little bit of a red flag.
Exactly.
About, how healthy that relationship is.
Yet their reaction, it can really highlight some imbalances that might need some attention.
It's interesting, because you start thinking about,
For sure.
it's not just about me setting boundaries, it's about the other person's reaction to it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a two-way street.
Okay, so it seems like, step one is retraining our brains to see these boundaries, not as this selfish thing, but as a tool to build healthy relationships.
Absolutely.
But how do we actually do that?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Right. I know it's so easy to say,
Yeah.
but how do we actually, put it into practice?
It's not easy. You're right.
Yeah.
But luckily, the book, it gives us 4 strategies
Okay, let's hear them.
to break free from that guilt cycle and start, setting those boundaries with a little more confidence.
Give me the strategies. I'm ready.
All right. So the first one, it all starts with reframing how we think about boundaries.
Okay.
Instead of seeing them as restrictive or selfish,
Right.
it's about shifting our perspective to
Right.
see them as protective.
Protective.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
Boundaries, they create space for the things that are really important to you.
Oh, okay.
They're not about shutting people out.
Yeah.
It's about making sure you have the energy and the time
Right.
to take care of yourself
Gotcha.
and pursue those things that, bring you joy.
So it's I'm setting a boundary so that I can be the best version of myself for everyone else.
Exactly.
Got it.
From that space of, self-care,
Okay.
you can actually be more present, more giving
Right.
in those relationships
Without totally burning out.
without hitting that wall. Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Good.
What's the next strategy?
So the next one, the book really emphasizes clear communication,
Okay.
but, kind communication. It's not about being aggressive. It's just about saying what you need
Right.
directly and respectfully.
Gotcha.
The book actually gives us some phrases, to say no
Ooh, I like this.
without feeling like you have to apologize.
Yeah. Okay, give me an example.
Okay, so let's say someone invites you to something and you're just not up for it.
Yeah.
You could say, I really appreciate the invite, but I'm taking some downtime right now.
Wow. It's so simple, but it's true.
Right.
You're not making excuses or,
No.
coming up with some elaborate
Yeah,
story.
You're just stating your need.
Right.
Direct.
It's that.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 down, 2 to go.
All right, number 3.
What's the third strategy for guilt-free boundaries?
This one's about giving yourself permission to set those limits.
Okay.
So often we wait for, someone else to validate us
Oh, yeah.
or give us
We do
permission.
that all the time.
But the book reminds us
Yeah.
we have the right
Right.
to prioritize our needs.
That's a good reminder. I like
Yeah,
that.
we don't need someone else's permission slip
Yeah.
to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. We're worthy of setting boundaries without,
Exactly.
getting approval from someone else.
It's about recognizing our own worth.
Right.
And understanding that setting limits, it's not selfish, it's self-respect.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like a total mind shift
It is-
from
it-
feeling guilty to feeling empowered.
Totally.
Okay, so we've got reframing boundaries, clear communication, giving ourselves permission.
Right.
What's the final, secret weapon?
The final one is all about self-compassion.
Okay.
It's recognizing that, guilt,
Yeah.
it's just an emotion.
Okay.
It doesn't define us.
Right?
It's not a reflection of, who we are as a person.
I think a lot of us, we kind of get caught up in those feelings.
We do.
And it's tough to separate the feeling from who you are.
It is.
Yeah.
It's about challenging that negative self-talk,
Okay.
that keeps us stuck in that guilt cycle.
So be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Even when it's hard to set those boundaries.
Even when we mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the book, it has this question, it asks, would I want someone else to sacrifice their well-being just to make me happy?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's deep.
Yeah. It makes you think.
If we wouldn't expect it from someone else,
Right.
why do we expect it from ourselves?
Exactly. It's a double standard.
Yeah, and the book is saying, self-compassion is key
Absolutely.
to breaking free from that pattern of, always putting our needs last.
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness we offer to others.
Okay, so we've got these 4 amazing strategies.
Yes.
Reframing boundaries as protective.
Right.
Clear communication. Giving ourselves permission.
Yes.
Practicing self-compassion.
That's the foundation.
Okay, this is all great in theory,
Sure.
but, how do we actually put it into practice?
Right. That's where the rubber meets the road.
It's one thing to talk about boundaries. It's another thing to actually enforce them,
Absolutely. That's the real challenge.
Especially when things get, a little sticky
For sure.
or, emotionally charged.
Yeah, those are the tough moments.
So, luckily, the book, it doesn't just leave us hanging. It gives us, actual scenarios
Okay.
and, scripts
Oh, I love
for how to navigate, those awkward situations.
Yeah, there's moments where you're like, what do I say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we need to, hold firm to those boundaries.
Yes. Give me the tool.
Perfect. I'm sure our listeners can totally relate.
For sure.
We've all been in those moments where we're like, I don't know what to do.
Totally.
So let's start with work.
Okay. Good place to start.
How do we set boundaries with, a really demanding boss?
Yeah.
Without, risking our job?
Right. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, I think everybody's dealt with that at some point.
Oh, for sure.
What does the book say?
Well, the book suggests being clear and direct, but also respectful.
Okay.
Instead of getting defensive.
Right.
Focus on what you can and cannot do.
Okay.
Like your workload and your capacity.
So, don't make it personal.
Right, exactly.
Make it about the work.
Keep it professional. So, for example, if your boss keeps piling on more tasks, you could say something like,
Okay.
I'm really committed to doing my best work here, but I'm already at capacity with my current projects.
Mm-hmm.
Can we maybe discuss priorities and timelines for these additional tasks?
That's a great script.
Yeah.
It's not you're not saying
Right.
you're being a jerk.
No blaming.
You're saying,
You're just stating the facts.
I want to do a good job, but I have limits.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's really important.
That's really helpful.
Good.
Okay, so that's work.
Right?
But what about, our personal lives?
Yeah, that's where it gets even trickier sometimes.
All right, like what about those friends?
Oh, yeah.
The ones who just expect us to be available 24/7.
The ones who are always calling.
Right, even when we, need a break.
Yes, we all have them.
So what does the book say about that?
The book recommends being honest.
Okay.
About needing that space, but framing it in a way that emphasizes the value of the friendship.
Okay, I like that.
So for instance, you could say something like,
Okay.
I love hanging out with you,
Yeah.
but I also need some downtime
Yeah.
to recharge, pursue my own things.
Right.
Let's plan for another time when I can be fully present.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
You're not like,
You're not rejecting them?
I don't like you, go away.
No, not at all.
You're saying,
It's about taking care of yourself
I value you.
so that you can be a good friend.
Exactly. It's not about ending the friendship.
Right.
It's about, taking care of yourself so that you can actually be a good friend.
Exactly. It's about sustainability
I like that.
in the friendship.
Okay, so we've tackled work,
Yeah.
friendships.
Uh-huh.
Now let's talk about, maybe the hardest one.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Family.
The big one.
Oh, family can be so tough
Exactly.
because, everybody's got their history,
Oh, yeah. Baggage galore.
expectations, all that stuff.
Generations of patterns.
Right. So how do we deal with family?
Well, the book, it really emphasizes clear communication
Okay.
and consistent enforcement of
Uh-huh.
those boundaries,
Yeah.
even when, it's met with resistance.
Which probably will be with family.
Oh, yeah, most likely.
Yeah.
So you might say something like,
Okay.
I really value our relationship, but I need some personal time and space. I'd appreciate it if we could, work together to set some boundaries around this.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's direct.
It is?
But it's respectful.
Right,
And I
right.
think with family, sometimes you do have to be more direct
Yeah, you got to be firm.
because they're used to,
Those old dynamics.
yeah, this patterns.
Yeah. So this is about setting the tone for a new way of relating.
Right. Like a healthier way of, communicating.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it's a little uncomfortable at first.
It might be bumpy at the beginning,
Yeah.
but it's worth it in the long run.
Okay. So as we can see, these strategies from the book can be applied to all sorts of situations.
Absolutely.
It's about, figuring out what to say
Finding the right words.
clearly
Kindly.
and then sticking to your guns.
Yeah. And holding firm
Even when it's hard.
to those boundaries, even when it feels tough.
Because it will.
Yeah.
But remember, it's a process.
Right.
You don't have to be perfect at this,
I like that.
right away.
It's okay to mess up.
Yeah, give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
The key is to keep practicing,
Yeah.
keep getting better, and most importantly, keep prioritizing yourself.
I love that.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's about making those small changes in how we communicate
absolutely.
that can lead to, healthier relationships overall.
Small changes, big impact.
Yeah, and it's not just about us, right?
Sure, it's not.
Like when we set boundaries,
Yeah,
we're actually, kind of inspiring the people around us
that's true.
to do the same.
We're modeling healthy behavior.
I like that.
So it's like a ripple effect of positive change.
Exactly. We can all benefit from this.
So by setting boundaries, we're taking care of ourselves.
For sure.
And we're, kind of contributing to a more compassionate world.
Absolutely.
I love that.
It's a win-win.
So we've talked a lot about, the theory behind boundaries.
Yeah, we've laid the groundwork.
Now I want to get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's get practical.
Like how do we actually handle those really tricky situations?
Yeah, where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly.
We need the real life scenarios.
So the book, it has a whole section on, dealing with that demanding boss, navigating those friendships that, maybe feel a little one-sided.
Right, where you're always the one giving...
Or even setting limits with family
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
who maybe aren't used to us,
Standing up for ourselves.
sticking up for ourselves, saying no.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's break those down and see how we can, use those strategies
Liberty.
that we talked about
Let's do it.
in those real-life moments.
All right, bring on the challenge.
Yeah.
All right, bring on the challenge.
So first up, work. The workplace, the dreaded boss situation.
Oh, yeah, that could be tough.
So, we all have that boss who maybe pushes a little too hard.
The micromanager.
Or maybe just doesn't really get that we have limits.
Right, or piles on the work.
So what do we do? How do we handle those situations?
Well, the book, it suggests being clear and direct, but respectful,
Okay, so it's finding that balance.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot between being assertive and being, a good team player.
Okay, I like that.
So instead of, getting defensive or blaming.
Right, because nobody likes that.
No, nobody wins.
It's about focusing on, the work itself.
Exactly, your workload and your capacity.
Okay, and communicating that clearly.
So for example, if your boss keeps dumping more tasks on you, you could say something like, I'm committed to doing my best here, but I'm already at capacity with my current projects.
Yeah.
Maybe we could prioritize these new tasks and figure out a realistic timeline.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
It's direct, but it's not aggressive.
Right, it's not like pointing fingers.
No, it's about problem solving together.
You're basically saying, hey, I want to do a good job, but I also have limits.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Yeah, and it keeps that professional tone.
Right, it keeps it about the work.
Yeah, nobody feels attacked.
All right, so that's work.
Okay, so we survived the boss.
What about, those trickier relationships, like friendships?
Oh yeah, friendships can be a minefield.
Because, we love our friends.
Of course.
But sometimes, they have those expectations.
Oh yeah.
Like, they think we should always be available.
The always-on-call friend.
Exactly. And it can be tough to say no.
Yeah, you don't want to hurt their feelings.
So how do we set those boundaries without, damaging the friendship?
The book recommends being honest
Okay.
about needing that space, but framing it in a way that emphasizes the value of the friendship.
So, not making it personal.
Exactly. It's about taking care of yourself so you can actually be a better friend in the long run.
I like that.
So you could say something like, hey, I really love hanging out with you, but I need some time for myself to recharge. I'm happy to get together, but maybe we can find another time when I can be fully present.
That's a great approach.
It sets a boundary, but it also shows that you care about the friendship.
It's like saying, I value you, but I also value myself.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've tackled work, friendships, and now for the big one.
Uh-oh, the one we've all been dreading.
Family.
The ultimate boundary challenge.
Because, family dynamics, they can be so complex.
Oh, layers upon layers.
All those expectations, those ingrained patterns.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to break free from those.
So how do we even begin to set boundaries with family?
Well, the book acknowledges that this is one of the toughest situations,
For sure.
but it emphasizes how important it is for our well-being.
Right. It's not about creating distance. It's about building healthy relationships.
Exactly, where everyone feels respected and heard.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
The book suggests a few key strategies.
Okay.
First, being clear about your limits, but not getting defensive.
So, not blaming or attacking.
Right, just stating the facts calmly.
Gotcha.
Second, be consistent. Even when your family pushes back, stand your ground.
Oh, that's so hard with family.
It is. It takes practice.
Yeah.
And finally, remember to prioritize your own emotional well-being.
Okay, so even if it means, stepping away from a conversation.
Exactly, or taking a break from a visit.
Sometimes that's necessary.
It can be. It's about protecting yourself.
I love how the book focuses on the positive impact that boundaries can have.
Oh, yeah.
It might seem counterintuitive, but
It is, yeah.
it really makes sense when you think about it.
It does.
When we're upfront about what we need, it allows for more genuine connection.
Absolutely. It takes the guesswork out of it.
Right. It helps us build relationships that are based on, respect and understanding.
And that's what we all want, right?
Absolutely. So to our listener, if you're feeling overwhelmed by this whole idea of boundaries,
I get it. It could be a lot.
remember, start small.
Yeah, small steps.
Celebrate those little victories.
Every boundary you set is a win.
And most importantly, be kind to yourself.
Oh, self-compassion is key.
It's about recognizing that this is a journey.
A process of growth.
And you don't have to do it alone.
You've got this.
There are tons of resources available to help you.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, books, therapy, support groups, whatever works for you.
Find what feels good.
And don't be afraid to lean on your community for support.
Your friends, family, whoever gets it.
Talking about it can really help.
It can be so validating.
And empowering.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the practical side of setting boundaries.
The nuts and bolts.
But what I really want to emphasize is that it's not just about, saying no or protecting ourselves.
It's deeper than that.
It's about creating space for something even better.
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
It's about creating space for real, genuine connection.
That's the beautiful part of boundaries.
Like when we set those boundaries, we're not shutting people out.
Right. It's not about building walls.
We're actually creating a foundation,
a framework
for more authentic and meaningful relationships.
Absolutely.
And that's really powerful.
They
You
do.
know, it's like when we're upfront about what we need,
Yeah.
it allows people to show up for us in a way that's real.
In a way that's genuine and supportive.
And that's where those truly deep connections can form.
Absolutely.
So it's not about pushing people away
No, it's about inviting them in
in a way that feels good for everyone involved.
on a deeper level.
And you know what I think is so cool about this whole idea of setting boundaries
Yeah.
is that it's not just about our personal lives.
Right.
It's also about how we show up in the world.
I love that. Yeah.
Like when we set boundaries, we're kind of challenging those societal norms.
the ones that tell us to put ourselves last,
Exactly.
especially women.
Yeah.
It's like we're saying, hey, my needs matter too.
It's about taking care of ourselves, but it's also about creating a more compassionate world for everyone
A world where we all feel empowered to say no.
and to prioritize our well-being.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Me too.
So if you're listening and you're struggling with this, please know that you're not alone.
It's a common struggle.
It is, but it's something you can overcome.
And it's so worth it.
It really is.
Remember, setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, courage, and ultimately love.
For yourself and for the world around you.
And that's something to be proud of.
It's true. When we communicate our needs openly and honestly, it allows others to show up for us in a way that's authentic and supportive.
Right. It takes the guesswork out of the equation. We're giving people the information they need to interact with us in a way that works for both sides.
It helps avoid those unspoken expectations and simmering resentments that can build up over time and damage relationships.
Exactly. It creates an environment where everyone feels seen, heard, and respected. And that's where those deeper, more fulfilling connections can grow.
Now, something I found interesting is how the source ties this whole idea of setting boundaries back to the concept of self-respect. It's not about being selfish, but about valuing yourself enough to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being.
I love that. It's a powerful reframing. It challenges that old narrative that we need to be constantly sacrificing ourselves to earn love or acceptance.
Right. And when we start to see boundaries as a form of self-care, it becomes easier to set them without that nagging sense of guilt.
It's like we're finally giving ourselves permission to prioritize our own needs, which can feel radical when you've spent a lifetime putting everyone else first.
Absolutely. And it's not just about personal well-being. The source highlights how setting boundaries can actually ripple outward, inspiring others to do the same.
It's like we're modeling a healthier way of relating to each other, which can create a ripple effect of positive change.
Exactly. It normalizes the idea that self-care isn't selfish, it's essential.
So by taking care of ourselves, we're actually contributing to a more compassionate and equitable world.
Precisely. Now, one thing the source doesn't delve into too deeply, but I think is worth considering, is the role of self-compassion in this process. It can be so challenging to unlearn those ingrained patterns of people-pleasing and self-sacrifice. We need to be kind to ourselves along the way.
That's such a good point. It's easy to beat ourselves up when we stumble or fall back into those old habits, but like you said earlier, it's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. And we need to recognize that learning to set boundaries is a journey, not a destination. There will be times when it feels awkward or uncomfortable or even triggers that guilt.
So instead of getting down on ourselves, we can practice self-compassion, acknowledging our efforts, recognizing our growth, and treating ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a loved one.
Exactly. That self-compassion can be incredibly empowering. It gives us the resilience to keep practicing and refining our boundaries and keep showing up for ourselves authentically.
As we wrap up this deep dive into setting boundaries without the guilt trip, is there one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
The biggest takeaway is that setting boundaries is an act of self-love, not selfishness. It's about recognizing your inherent worth and honoring your needs and limits. And when you do that, it creates a ripple effect of positive change, not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you.
Beautifully said. And I'd add that setting boundaries is a skill that can be learned and cultivated over time. It's not always easy, but it's so worth the effort. The more we practice, the more confident we become in creating a life that feels aligned with our true selves.
And you don't have to go it alone. There are so many resources available to help you on this journey, from books and articles to therapists and support groups. Don't hesitate to reach out for support when you need it.
So true. And remember, dear listener, setting boundaries is an act of self-care and empowerment. It's about honoring your needs, respecting your limits, and creating healthier, more authentic relationships.
It's about recognizing that you deserve to be treated with respect, just like everyone else, and that includes respecting yourself.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and practical tools to start setting those boundaries without the guilt.
Remember, you've got this. Embrace the power of boundaries and watch your life transform.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep setting those boundaries.